Hello, hello, hello. We are going live. We are live. Oh, hello, Bow Street Society. Let me test my chat thing. So, that's working. Excellent. Well, I'm in Singapore. That photo is one I took. I'm very pleased with it. It's a great photo. Let me just step out of the way. Again, I have to put a virtual background in because I'm not allowed to show where I am when I'm anywhere near the hotel, which obviously is where I am. I'm in my hotel room. So that I'm very pleased with that picture. That is one of my all-time favourites. That one is. I was lucky because it was literally that weird moment between daylight and night, so it was kind of dusky. And the light show was going on, so you've got that going on. They'd just turned on all the lights. I mean, yes, I knew the photograph I wanted to take, but I was quite lucky to be exactly in the right place to get that. And it is, yeah, it's one of my favourite photographs, that one. I've actually had that one printed and put onto a I don't like what I've done with the picture, so I'm going to get it reprinted at some point and put on the wall. Yeah, it's about pre-COVID, that one. That's a while back, and that was taken on my phone. I could take such a better picture now on my proper camera. But yeah, so yesterday I did something really quite annoyingly dumb. So I couldn't do it. So I decided to try and sign off chapter 31. Those of you who listen to my podcast will know that I succeeded in doing that. But I also managed to... Oh, hello. I'm good, thanks. How are you? Yeah, so I managed to sign it off. And although I couldn't do it as a live stream, I recorded this, me doing it. And I thought, oh, it'd be quite nice if I switched to the phone view to show everybody what's around me, because you could literally, from where I was sitting, you could see the Opera House and the Sydney Harbour Bridge. So it was a lovely spot. It was a place called the Opera Bar. And when I switched it across, I forgot to do... Basically, you have two microphones running at the same time, and it sounds a bit weird because they're not quite in sync, so the voice goes all echoey. So I turned off the microphone on the computer. And then when I switched back to this view, I forgot to turn it back on again. And given that I was doing a sign-off, which is basically off paper, not off screen, it was pointless. So I have that recording. It's pointless me putting it on YouTube, because basically after I decided to show you what's around me, after that moment, you won't be able to hear anything. But I did sign off chapter 31. So that's a bit of a milestone for a couple of reasons. So firstly, my target was to finish chapter 30 by the end of this month. And I've done chapter 31. And indeed, I am quite tired now, so but I'm up for doing this. So as long as I don't find that my tiredness is making me not work properly, I'm going to try and get chapter 32 signed off tonight. Now, 32 is really significant because this is the last chapter I wrote in the first phase of writing the book. And then I had, hello, how are you? How's things? Yeah, it was the first chapter in the first phase. I'm in Singapore today, which is why you've got the background. That's not what you can actually see behind me. I have to put an artificial background on. But what was I saying? Yeah, so this chapter 32 is the last one I wrote in the first writing phase. Oh, bless you. Okay. It was the last chapter I wrote in the first writing phase, and then I came back to it years later. So it will be interesting. So what I did when I got the stuff I'd written ready to, basically in a point where I wanted to continue it, I edited those first 32 chapters and then started writing new material in August last year. So this is the last of the original material. So when I go on to the next chapter, it's stuff that was written a couple of years later. So it's going to be interesting to see if it dovetails, how it works, and all that. But just going back to Angel Faye, I'm just hoping you and everyone you know is safe and well, and the baby's okay and everything. But yeah, so chapter 30, if I sign this one off, that's quite a moment, because then I'm going into writing and editing the new stuff. That's good to know. If I do that, is it going to do something silly? Yes, I thought it would. Oh yeah, it would. I discovered it can do that as well, which isn't aimed at anyone particular watching, I hasten to add. But literally, it picks up if I do that silly, and it, yeah. No idea why. It's not very useful, but there you go. So yeah, chapter 32. The last one I wrote. Now I did actually write, and the party one, yeah, but I have to press a button to make it do that. Hang on. And I don't know how to do that now. Presenter overlay, FaceTime camera. Reactions. Yeah, so I can do this. Why I'd want to, I've no idea. Or this. Woo! Oh, I can have it rain on me. Yeah. All rather excuse me, all rather pointless. So yeah, so I'm in Singapore today, and I'm just going to crack on with doing a bit of editing work on chapter 32. And as I say, what I'm hoping to do is, well, I'm ahead of myself this month anyway. There's 43 chapters in total, so after I've done this one, there'll be another 11 to do. Now, if I can get this signed off tonight, I've then effectively got another almost 2 days here in Singapore. So I'm going to try, no promises, I'm going to try and get 33 signed off when I'm in Singapore as well, which leaves me 10 to do next month. Or, given how I'm really into this at the moment, I might do a bit more this month, as long as I don't use it as an excuse not to do the other things I need to do, which is to put together a submissions package for Still Life and continue to submit the English Hikikomori, my 2 completed works. Right, I'm going to have a sip of tea. That's going to sort of disappear because of the colour it is, isn't it? That's a bit weird. Actually, what I might do, because that's quite hot, I'm just going to get a mug to pour it into, is this really delightful tea I got. Well, it's actually an American chain. Lots to do. It's an American chain called the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. But I had this in their store the other night, and it's absolutely delightful. So I bought a box. And then realised I can't take it into Sydney, because they'll take it off me and fine. Well, they wouldn't fine me if I declared it. So the hotel have a little storage thing, so the hotel let me leave it here so that I could pick it up when we got back here. But it's a bit hot, so I'm just gonna see. Look, it's just disappeared there because of this weirdness. But there we go. So I'm going to drink it from a mug, and I'm going to crack on with this. Oh, the one thing I forgot to say is, for people who are interested, as usual, that QR code in the top left-hand corner of the screen is my social media. One of the links you get in there is a link to my Discord server. And if you're on my Discord server, at the bottom, there is a thing called voice channels, and there is one voice channel called Twitch Streams Live, which is on now. So that noise you heard there is the noise of it activating. So if anybody would like to come in and do an actual physical conversation, feel free to dial into the server and talk to me. The only downside is anything you say will end up on this stream. So people have done it. Many people are bullied into it. Thank you, Bow Street Society. But that is so good. That is so good. Let's see. Right, chapter 32. Project Yankee. I cannot authorise that at this time. I'm sorry. I have an election in 6 days. Oh, let me switch it to that view as well. And I'm now looking at it. He's a politician and he's annoyed. I'm not sure he'd say he was sorry. So let's get rid of that. I cannot authorise it this time. I have an election in 6 days. I'm going to lose the I'm sorry because I don't think he'd be sorry. I think he'd be just thinking about his election that he's about to lose. Maybe. I cannot authorise that at this time. I have an election in 6 days. Oakley glared at the wall of his study and shook his head. It is a command directly from Yggdrasil herself. She is threatening to rule summarily against us if we cannot locate the entity that has vanished. The ambassador has been ordered to intervene directly. We think Mackenzie is a prisoner up there as well. I don't need all that many people. That's good, said Derek Cockerell Wright, because I cannot spare you any. I have civil disturbances all over the country, Mr. Oakley. The armed forces are the only thing preventing total anarchy, and they are hanging on by the thinnest of thin threads. I cannot give you any further troops or equipment. Perhaps after the election. If you're in power by then, snapped Oakley. Indeed, replied Oakley. So why don't you use the emergency powers to call it off? Hold it later when things have calmed down a bit. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. What I'm about to tell you cannot be repeated, Mr. Oakley, to anyone. We could postpone the election given the civil unrest, but then what? It's a no-win situation. Whatever happens, whoever is in power is going to preside over the end of life as we know it. Oakley felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise. Oh, Christ, you don't want to win. You want someone else to take the blame for the forthcoming catastrophe. Cockerell Wright was quiet for a few moments. We believe that we can turn with a landslide in 5 years, but that we have no chance now. Oakley wanted to scream at the man, but managed to maintain his composure. So you plan to hand power to Carl Tucker on a silver platter? We do not see a realistic alternative, said Cockerell Wright. We transmit our first party political broadcast later today. It contains the truth, literally the whole truth, about Idrisil, about her demands, all of it. People will think you're crazy. End of page 1. They will now, yes, said Cockerell Wright. But they will know, in 5 years, that we told the truth. We won't fucking be here in 5 years, Oakley shouted down the phone. He was met with silence. Can we at least use the soldiers here to help us when we recover Mackenzie? That would not be my first choice, said Cockerell Wright. Well, the ambassador is going up there whether you like it or not, snapped Oakley. Therefore, her protection unit will have to go with her. Are you seriously saying they cannot get involved, even if she puts herself in danger? There was a very long pause at the other end of the line. In fact, for a moment, Oakley was worried that the call had ended. He checked the phone and they still seemed to be connected. But they still seemed to be connected would be better there. Let me just... But they still seemed to be connected. Do what you have to do, Mr. Oakley, said Cockerell Wright eventually. But remember that we cannot give you any extra support, tactical or otherwise. Otherwise, you're on your own. Can you at least make it clear to Lance Corporal Barrera that he can assist us? I will arrange that, yes, said Cockerell Wright eventually. Eventually again? Let's lose the second eventually. I will arrange that, yes, said Cockerell Wright. I must go now. I have the final edit of the broadcast review. If you need anything further today, I'll be unavailable. Use Theresa Burke as a point of contact. Yes, Prime Minister, said Oakley sarcastically as he ended the call. He opened the study door and leaned out into the hall. Marianne, he yelled, get everyone together, including Barrera. We have some arrangements to make. At the same time the Arboretum had been added onto the existing facility, a large clearing had been created next to the imposing canvas dome. Trees had been chopped down, the roots had been pulled out, the ground had been levelled, and grass had been planted. It was in that space that a small yellow helicopter was landing. Clayton was there to greet it. He stood next to the exterior of the dome and watched as the helicopter gently touched down, the landing skids sinking very slightly into the earth. The rotors continued to spin at high speed for a few moments, then the sound became less intense as the blades slowed. A few seconds later the door opened and Carl Tucker stepped carefully out. He was once again dressed as a politician, an immaculate suit worn with a pristine knee-length grey coat with a burgundy rosette pinned to the lapel. Clayton had some grudging respect for him. This election, there were no opinion polls to discuss, no media pundits giving their thoughts on prospects and performance and on the prospects and performances of the various parties and their leaders, and no media pundits giving their thoughts on the prospects and performances of the various parties and their leaders. One website was now available, the government website, and in the interests of fairness, a zip file was available to download containing every manifesto. Local candidates were allowed one leaflet, which had been delivered by the post office to every address. House-to-house canvassing was allowed, but not after curfew. Clayton was aware of this, not that he had read any of the material. He did not usually vote, he considered it a waste of time. Whichever overpaid millionaire ran the country made no difference to him. They were all corrupt. On this occasion, though, Clayton had voted. Tucker had insisted that he did so. He did not tell Clayton who to vote for, but loyalty was an unwritten rule. Clayton had duly done a postal vote electing his Red Victor Party candidate, a slimy-looking man whose photograph would have looked more appropriate on a wanted poster for a child molester. And that's based on experience. We had, it's a long time ago. It was when UKIP, the UK Independence Party, existed. and we had a candidate, I think it was a mayoral election for the local mayor, but we had a mayor, and honest to God, this picture just, it was the most, I'm sure the guy didn't look that awful in real life, but the photograph they put on all his literature was literally, yeah, don't let your kids near that. He just looked scary and evil, and that's kind of what I'm channeling in that moment. Tucker stepped carefully across. Can I just, Bow Street, can I just ask you to just send a message, because my phone keeps playing silly buggers and I can't see the screen, obviously, because I'm reading at the moment. Could you just send a message to see if I'm still receiving them on my phone? If not, I may have to rethink, because people could be sending me messages and I would have no idea. Assuming you're still here, of course. Tucker stepped carefully across the grass beneath the blades and shook Clayton warmly by the hand. He was in campaign mode. He'd been touring the various Highland constituencies where he hoped to unseat a whole host of Scottish National Party candidates. Anyone. It doesn't have to be Bow Street Society. Let me just switch to a different view on here. Hang on. No, okay. I'm still transmitting though, yes. Just checking. As well as standing on a platform promising to reverse all of the recent new rules and taxes the government had imposed, it also promised the Scottish people a referendum on the independence by the end of the year. It was a very popular notion. Tucker wanted Scotland. No, I think that should be italicised. Tucker wanted Scotland to be a separate nation. His advisers had said that as a region it cost the country far more per head than taxes brought in. Losing Scotland would make England richer. I am absolutely thrilled that the experiment has been a success, Tucker said in a smarmy voice that was so different to his usual speech that Clayton burst out laughing. You don't need to do that posh bollocks with me, Mr. Tucker, he said with a smile. Tucker grinned and followed him through a side door into the building. They walked down the short canvas corridor as Tucker removed his coat and gloves. He deposited them on some hooks outside the Arboretum door, which opened. Sayers was hunched over a computer, but stood to greet him. Congratulations, Mr. Sayers, said Tucker. The scientist took the proffered hand. It was a sound theory, Mr. Tucker. I'm just glad it worked without needing further tests. Tucker smiled. I had every confidence in you, he said. Can I talk to the entity now? Sayers nodded. It will take just a few minutes to set up, he said. Now the link has been established. Signwolf says he can talk to us as soon as the boy's connected. He picked up the phone and dialed a number. Bring Mackenzie and the nurse to the Arboretum, he said. He waited for confirmation, then put down the receiver. They will be here shortly. Clayton was about to close the door when he saw an armed guard approaching, leading Mackenzie on a leash. Claire was behind them, her arm in a sling. Mackenzie was dragged into the Arboretum and pushed down onto the bed. The guard undid his handcuffs and Clayton took over, securing him once again by the shins, wrists and neck. Tucker peered down to look at Mackenzie. Beneath the metal band that was now permanently fixed to his head, the skin was an ashen grey colour. There were large bags under his eyes which were red-rimmed and sickly looking. Tucker frowned. He doesn't look very well, he said with concern. We can't remove the interface probes without killing him, and they're killing him anyway. We were hoping to get a few weeks out of him, but at the rate he's deteriorating, I'd give him 5 or 6 days at the most. If that, muttered Claire as she fixed the cables on the chair to the ports on the crown. Tucker glared at her. Well, do we have another plan? Sayers smiled. We are confident that now the tree entity knows what we have done, it will not require a former ambassador to initiate the interface. Anyone should do the trick. Anyone with the correct neural probes inserted. Tucker nodded. Have you tested that? Not yet, said Sayers. We don't have another subject. Tucker looked at Clayton and bent his hair slightly towards Claire. She was never leaving her alive, was she? Use her. Claire gasped and tried to head for the door, but Clayton leapt between her and it. Wide-eyed, she tried to run around him, but he grabbed the arm that was already bandaged and twisted it. She screeched in pain and burst into tears as Clayton manhandled her from the Arboretum. Mackenzie said nothing, but tried to follow Claire with his tired eyes. Tucker turned back to Sayers. So, let's see this. Sayers checked the connections on Mackenzie's crown and then walked across to the computer console. Opening neural interface, he pressed a couple of buttons and clicked yes as 2 warning messages appeared on the screen. He looked across to the sugar tank, then back to Tucker. You will know communication is imminent because you will hear the sugar pumps kick in. There were a few seconds of silence, then the smooth hum started as the pumps initiated. There you go. Sayers examined the graphs on the screen. The patterns are synchronised. He should speak at any moment. He? Asked Tucker with a sneer. It, Sayers corrected himself. Mackenzie's eyes had closed. For a few seconds his face was neutral. Tucker watched in fascination as the eyes opened. The sugar pumps behind them slowed and then stopped. Who are you? Mackenzie's voice suddenly did not seem tired, and his gaze was firm. My name is Carl Tucker. In less than a week I'll be the Prime Minister of this United Kingdom. You do not need your ambassador anymore. You can talk directly to me. Mackenzie tried to shake his head. Veronica Arden is not my ambassador. She represents Idrisil, who believes that your species should be given the opportunity to prove that you are not destructive. I am Signwolf of Ragnarok. You have separated me from my collective. Be assured that by doing so you have sealed your fate. My brethren knew where I was and why I was coming here, and even surmised that I might be putting myself in danger. If you destroy me, or even if they believe that you have, enough of the Idrisil will join us. Ragnarok will win, and we will remove you from our beautiful earth. Mackenzie lowered his eyes. You must free me. If you do that, you will be showing good faith, and some of you may yet be allowed to survive. Tucker took a step forward. I don't think you understand. If we follow the directives that Idrisil has given us, it will wreck the economy of the entire world. Millions of people will fall below the poverty line. So many jobs will be lost that the world will never recover, perhaps not for generations. Do you understand? Hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions will die. You cannot force us to do this so quickly. It's impossible. Mackenzie shook his head gently. It is not impossible. Do not think me without empathy, Carl Tucker. It is not that we wish to destroy you. We simply do not wish you to destroy us. The difference between the Idrisil and the Ragnarok is one of ideology. Idrisil believes that you can be trusted to act in your own best interests. Ragnarok believes that you cannot. Neither side wishes to destroy you, but both will put our interests ahead of yours. Mackenzie closed his eyes. It makes no difference to me which of your kind talks to me. It will change nothing. Free me. I'm used to hearing the voices of others. This silence is like a form of torture. Say others of my kind. I think I'm just going to add that. Others of my kind. This silence, I'm not going to say it's like. Silence is a form of torture. Tucker looked across to Sayers, who nodded. We can, but I need you to give me some assurances before I do that. I want you to convince Idrisil that they need to extend their timescales enormously. It is not. I don't know. Can anybody hear me? I'm not sure, because I don't know if any messages are getting through. Oh well. Sorry if you're sending messages and I'm not responding. I can't see them. I want you to consider that they need to extend the timescales enormously. It's not that we don't want to adhere to your deadlines, it's that we cannot. The moderate governments that are trying to implement this around the world are falling. The people will not be told what they can and cannot do, and we cannot tell them the truth because they will think we're crazy. If you guarantee you'll extend the timescales, I will free you. Mackenzie looked sad. That guarantee is not within my power. I will not lie to you, Carl Tucker, even if it would help my cause to do so. Then I cannot help, said Tucker simply. I am a pragmatist. I do believe in the ideologies that I showcase. I believe in free enterprise. I think given time, perhaps half a century, then as a race we can accede to your requirements. But people need persuading, coaching. That cannot be achieved overnight. Mackenzie shook his head. This is where you cannot be trusted. You don't even believe the ideologies you push. You just want power. You will rewrite the book to suit what you think is popular. You are now starting to understand that we can do as we threaten, so you try to bargain with us to achieve something your voters will find palatable. Mackenzie looked weary again. I can make no guarantees. Free me. Extend your deadlines and I will. I cannot. Then there is nothing more to say. I can say, said Tucker. This conversation is over. We once wiped out a race, said Mackenzie sadly. It was such a long time ago there was no evidence of their existence, at least that you have uncovered. That was a mistake. That was when we first understood the concept of genocide. A tear fell down Mackenzie's grey cheek. It is a tragedy that we must do the same. But I would remind you, if we have a choice of saving our kind or yours, there is no contest. Humanity will be consigned to the archives of history. The world will survive. We will survive. You will not. Tucker leaned into Mackenzie's face. Yeah? Well, you have obviously never heard of bottled oxygen, have you? He made a cutthroat gesture to Sayers, who nodded and flicked some switches on his console. The sound of the sugar pumps dominated the... And there's a word missing there. And I need to blow my nose. Dominated the room. For a few moments before fading slowly and stopping, Mackenzie closed his eyes and his breathing settled into a slow and regular pattern. Is it disconnected? Asked Tucker. Sayers glanced at his screens. Yes, I'm showing 2 independent brainwave signals. Sayers walked across and unplugged the cable from Mackenzie's crown. All done. Tucker nodded. OK. How close are you to being able to implement Project Yankee? Sayers smiled. We could do it straight away, sir. Tucker balled his fist and punched the air. Excellent. Now seems like a good time. Well, let me have some breakfast first. Tucker walked to the exit. He hid the red button and strode from the arboretum. Sayers' eyes followed him, looking somewhat worried. Feeling a bit congested. I'm just going to go blow my nose. I will be very quick. Pour some more tea first. Yeah. Right, let me continue. So that we're on to page 7. We're in the middle of page 7 now, out of 19. So we're doing all right. Let me just have a look at my other screen. How long have we been doing this? Oh, half an hour. Yeah. This doesn't need to be a long session tonight. If I get this done, I will probably stop. Between Oakley and Marianne, they had dragged several more chairs into the study and asked Lance Corporal Brera to bring all of the soldiers in for a briefing. Baines and Mills insisted on staying by the door. Marianne, Ronnie and Ursula sat in the front row with Dr. Matthews, Vickers O'Neill and Barrera in the middle. This is a briefing detailing what Idris has demanded from us. Nothing is set in stone, and once I've outlined what we need to do, your input is welcome, said Oakley, his eyes catching Barrera's for a moment, who nodded. As you are aware, Idris dragged Ronnie into an interface to brief her on the fact that the Ragnarok faction are gaining traction within the... He was not sure how to complete the sentence. Tree community, he finished with slight embarrassment. This is because their leader, an entity by the name of Signwolf, has gone missing. It is believed that the tree it was inhabiting was somehow disconnected from the rest of the network. There is no way this could have been an accident, but whoever did it has no idea what they have trapped. We also know that Mackenzie was taken by masked men a few weeks ago, thanks to information from Mr. Carruthers was able to get to us whilst he recovers from his injuries. We believe that the events are linked. Idrisil has managed to communicate to Ronnie the approximate location of the tree that has been disconnected from the network. I was able to arrange for recent satellite images of the area, and we have located the following installation. Oakley turned on the projector and an image of a wooded area appeared on the screen. There was a clearing where there appeared to be no trees and a large circular object which seemed to be connected to a smaller building via a short tunnel. The building itself had several outbuildings dotted around it. This is a former research laboratory that was once used for an undisclosed purpose. Well, they wouldn't tell me anyway. The large white circle is new. We believe it to be some form of biome. The diameter of the construct is approximately 60 metres, and from the shadows we've been able to determine that it is hemispherical. Even I can do the sums on that one, said Ursula. The dome is approximately 30 metres tall. Large enough to isolate a tree, said Barrera thoughtfully. Continue. Thank you, said Oakley sarcastically. We've managed to get some older satellite pictures of the same area. He hit a button on the computer. 18 months ago, the dome had vanished, and the area that looked like a clearing was full of trees. 1 year ago, the picture changed. Barrera leaned forward. That looks like they're digging a hole. So whatever they're building goes deeper than the surface. Oakley nodded. A month later, there is a circular hole that has been lined with what looks like concrete and plastic. And then by the next picture, the dome has been erected. We don't know what the dome is made from. I'm going to change that to it. We don't know what it is made from. We don't know what it is made from. It could even be something as temporary as canvas. It must contain the tree that Simewolf is trapped within. So what is the objective? Asked Brera. Find out if there's a way of returning the entity trapped in the isolated tree to the main network. Locate and rescue Mackenzie. Oakley closed his eyes and for a second and frowned. Technically, Mackenzie is an ambassador as well. No, said Brera. Not as far as we're concerned. When he resigned, Ronnie glared over her shoulder at him. He is as much part of this as I am. I am willing to risk my life to save his. Please make sure that I don't have to. Barrera shook his head and sat down. Mum, he muttered. Ronnie wanted to glance at Vickers to see his face, but it was very likely that he was keeping his expression carefully neutral. He would not give her a reassuring smile because he would not want to annoy his commanding officer. Barrera spoke again. Do you have tactical support in any way? Oakley nodded. Arbour Associates has every bit of support we need. 24 security officers with tactical training will be joining us. They are all Arbour employees, and many of them served with either Her Majesty's Armed Forces or somebody else's. Ursula shook her head. But there is a curfew and a travel ban. How are we supposed to get up there and back with within the curfew hours and with travel restrictions in place? Oakley pulled a box from under the desk. There are certain exceptions that have been made. You're allowed to travel if you are canvassing for a political party for the election. You have to have permission to travel in the form of a certificate, which I've already obtained, for us and every individual involved in this operation. We will be travelling up to Scotland as support for one of the parties. He opened the box and pulled out a handful of blue rosettes. We will appear to be canvassing for the Conservative Party. Derek Cocklewright has even lent us a campaign bus. Ursula frowned. Is there not a better choice of colour, dear? Marianne did not look impressed. So the Arbour troops will meet us where? Here, tonight, said Oakley. The hold of the bus has already been adapted to carry the hardware we will need. They will come here to collect us. Barrera shook his head. How the hell am I meant to protect the ambassador when 24 complete strangers are going to turn up here? Who recruited them? Who did their background checks? Was it you? Was it Marianne? Was it Lord Farnborough? Oakley's face fell. He was not directly involved, no, he said. And you know this for certain? Oakley shook his head. No, I don't. But I'm caught between a rock and a hard place here, Lance Corporal. I asked the PM for troops, but he said they were needed on the streets. Ours are the only people I can get. My friend Oliver Shaw has gone through their records in as much detail as he could. We don't think anyone they're sending us any links. That could be worded a bit better. Hang on. We don't think anyone sending has any connection to Farnborough. Barrera walked calmly forward, then slammed his fist onto the desk. I am tasked with ensuring the ambassador is safe. I'm not doing this for you or for Arbour Associates. I'm not doing this for you or Arbour Associates. I understand that you think this op is necessary. Maybe it is. But you need to be bloody sure of the people you're sending us. Maybe it is. But you need to be bloody sure the people Arbour are sending us. How the heck can you prove none of them had a link to Lord Farnborough? You could be inviting in the assassin that undoes all of our work. Let me read that again. Barrera walked calmly forward and then slammed his fist into the desk. I am tasked with ensuring that the ambassador is safe. I'm not doing this for you or Arbour Associates. I understand that you think this op is necessary. Maybe it is. But you need to be bloody sure of the people Arbour are sending us. How the heck can you prove that none have a link to Farnborough? You could be inviting in the assassin that undoes all of our work. There was silence in the room. Then a small voice piped up. He's right. It was Marianne. I want you and Marianne to personally check the backgrounds of every person Arbour allocates to Barrera. Then show me. Once I'm happy, then we can proceed. Not before. We won't be bloody leaving tonight, of that you can be sure. Barrera stormed out of the room. Vickers caught Ronnie's eye, shrugged apologetically, and followed. Tucker was sitting in an office in the research building, a couple of corridors over from the Arboretum. The walls were a pale blue colour and some thin grey blinds were hanging over the window. They were open and a few feet beyond the forest started. There were a pair of filing cabinets perpendicular to the window with 2 used mugs resting on top of them. There was a simple wooden desk upon which Carl Tucker's feet were resting. Other than a telephone and a jotter, the desk was empty. 2 wooden chairs that looked as though they may once have been school chairs were opposite. Tucker looked at his watch. His guests should be arriving soon. Reluctantly, he removed his feet from the table and sat behind the desk. He opened the folder, which was marked Project Yankee, and started to flick through the contents. There was a dossier inside with a summary page on top and a more detailed breakdown beneath it. There were perhaps 10 pages in all, containing some detailed chemical formulas, illustrations of molecules, data on absorption rates, and tables showing comparative fungal growth rates. He smiled. Apart from the summary, none of it meant anything to him. There was a knock on the door. Tucker glanced at his watch and smiled. They were exactly on time. "Come in," he yelled, pushing the dossier back into the folder, but leaving it open on the desk. Clayton marched Claire and Mackenzie in. Mackenzie's pallor was even more unpleasant to look at than it had been earlier. The skin on his head around the crown where the probes had pushed into his skull looked a deeply unpleasant colour. Bruised purple. Let's say, what colour? Bruised purple colour. Claire sat down looking terrified, and Sayers pushed a dazed-looking Mackenzie into the other seat. "I've called you here to make you understand what is happening, Mackenzie. In less than a week, I am going to be Prime Minister. I want you to know that when that happens, I will be shutting down Arbor Associates for good. I will be reversing all the things this cretinous government has tried to do." Mackenzie shook his head wearily. "You know the truth. You know what will happen to all of us if you fail to meet the directives. This makes no sense." Tucker grinned. "Well, let me just say that science is my friend. Not only have I managed to communicate with one of these tree entities, a privilege hitherto only available to people like you, we have other irons in the fire, as it were." "Project Yankee?" Tucker frowned. "How could you possibly know about that?" "You mentioned it after the audience with Seinwolf." "I see. I'm in two minds what to say to you now, boy," declared Tucker. "If I told you the intention of Project Yankee, I would have to kill you. But as time will swiftly deal with that, I don't suppose it matters." He paused. "The government has prevented mass social unrest by removing people's ability to coordinate, Mackenzie. No internet, no radio, almost no television. Texting has been switched off. Whilst I have to publicly disagree with them doing it, the truth is it's genius, and it mirrors exactly what I have in mind for the trees. Project Yankee is something so irresistible for them that they have to try it out. Because of their static nature, whilst being very intelligent, they cannot perform scientific experiments. They cannot do research. But I can. I've developed a form of higher energy sugar that trees are capable of producing themselves. If they knew, they could communicate faster. They could even become larger and stronger and survive for many more centuries than they currently do." "So what's the catch?" Tucker unconsciously tapped the folder on the desk in front of him. "Sadly, at the moment, there is none. I was informed that a side effect of the chemical process that create the sugar would be deadly to fungi. So far, that has not happened. But when it does, when we come across the right sugar molecule, if the trees choose to enhance themselves, they will inadvertently destroy the mycelia that enable them to communicate. They'll become individuals again without the ability to coordinate. Think about it, Mackenzie. Without that, they're no threat to us. Humanity can continue to grow and evolve." "And how are you going to get that information to the trees?" "Someone will communicate it to them. It would have been you, but you won't last long enough, unfortunately." He glared across to Claire. "And neither will you, my dear. Sorry about that." There was a knock at the door. Tucker nodded to Clayton. The message was obvious. Get rid of whoever it was. Clayton stepped out. Mackenzie heard Sayers ask to speak to Tucker urgently, and the response was as curt as it was vulgar. "Please," Sayers repeated. "I really need to speak to you. It's Project Yankee. The latest results come back, and the enhancements we thought would have the side effects of damage to the mycelia are in fact enhancing them. The results are the opposite of what we need." Tucker looked murderously at the door, then down at Claire and Mackenzie. "Do not fucking move," he growled, pointing a finger at them. He stepped from the room and slammed the door behind him. Mackenzie and Claire sat silently for a few seconds, aware of the heated words coming from outside. Mackenzie coughed uncomfortably, then his eyes fell on the folder on the desk. Can you watch out for me, please? He asked. Tell me when he's coming back. Claire was white as a sheet, but she stood up and looked through the window. Sayers was showing pieces of paper on a clipboard to Tucker, whose expression was getting angrier and angrier. She looked back at Mackenzie. They're mid-argument. You have a few moments. Mackenzie opened the folder in front of him and started reading. He knew that he did not have to remember the contents. Even if he could not recall all of the details, once he'd read them, they would be stored in his mind, and Idrisil or Simewolf or any other entity interfaced with would be able to access it all. He glanced across at Claire, who nodded back at him. He read the outline for Project Yankee, which was just as Tuck had described it to him. The following pages had the chemical formula for the super sugar and how the trees could adapt their own process to use photosynthesis to create it. The final pages were details of what they had hoped would be chemical side effects that would damage the mycelia and how this had failed. Mackenzie read every word on all 10 pages, spelling out the words that he did not understand. He examined every diagram, and when he was done, he placed the dossier back into the folder and closed it. He'd been blanking out the argument that was going on outside. He was aware that it was happening, but had not been listening to the words until now. He nodded to Claire, and she sat down beside him, a relieved look on her face. I shouldn't have let you do that, she muttered under her breath. I don't care how hard it is. Saying they'll have to go back to the drawing board is not good enough, Tucker was screaming. I'll be number 10 next Friday, and I have to be able to stop these things from threatening us. Otherwise, we might as well roll over and take whatever they throw at us. Farnborough said this would work. I'm sorry, said Sayers. We have the basis of an idea, but you can't rush science. Professor Young has some... Very interesting. I'm just going to add the word very. Very interesting new ideas that we are looking into already. There was a dangerous silence. Does he? Does he really? Said Tucker coldly. He does. It has to do with adapting plant cells to add some features that make it more like an animal cell and open them to handle and move complex proteins in a way they currently just don't. Honestly, it's very promising. We may be less than a year away from a breakthrough. You could almost hear Tucker snap. A fucking year? We'll all be dead by then, starved of oxygen until we suffocate. And you've wasted how long on this blind alley? I was sure we could make it work. I can't help but have unrealistic expectations of what is scientifically feasible. Sayers' voice had quietened down. There was a long pause, and then the silence was shattered by the sudden sound of 2 gunshots. Claire screamed as Mackenzie pushed her to the floor, shielding her with his body. Oh, he's a good egg, isn't he? Tucker entered the room, followed by Clayton. Get rid of that, Mr. Clayton, he said calmly. I'm just going to say gesturing beyond the door. Perhaps we should move them 2 first, Mr. Tucker, Clayton called as he stepped outside. Tucker clearly agreed, and Clayton returned a second later. He dragged Mackenzie up by his clothing. You, up too, he demanded to Claire. Her face was red with tears and she failed to stand. What did you do? She screamed. Well, you'll have to walk past it to get back to your room, won't ya? He sneered, so you can have a good look. He pulled Claire to her feet and then pushed her to the door. Mackenzie went first. Tucker walked over to Sayers' body, whose lab coat was stained with blood. Mackenzie tried not to look, but found himself staring. Tucker glared at the pair of them as Clayton marched them past, shoving them through the door and into the corridor. Tucker closed the door behind them and then walked over to Sayers. He glared down at the blood-stained body for a few seconds, then tapped it gently with his foot. They're gone. Sayers opened his eyes and stood up. They brought it? He asked quietly. Tucker smiled. Judging by the look on their faces, yeah. Now it says yes, but I'm going to change that to a yeah, because that's more like what it'd say. Yeah. Sayers stood, muttered something about deserving an Oscar for his performance, then walked over to a nearby computer. He entered a password, then selected some options from the menu that came up. A live video feed from the office next door appeared on the screen. Sayers rewound the video until he saw Mackenzie reach for the folder. He smiled. Hook, line and sinker, Sayers said quietly. Looks like she didn't even have to prompt him to look at the folder either. Tucker grinned. So all he has to do now is escape. The only way he can survive those injuries is to do an old-fashioned interface with a tree. When he does, they will obtain all of the Project Yankee information too. Do you think they will try it? Do you think they'll try it? Do you think they'll try it? Asked Sayers. I hope so, replied Tucker. I really do. They will destroy their own method of communication. He sat down on an empty chair and pulled out his phone. I shall just let Mr. Woods know that I'll be leaving for London in 10 minutes. You sure Clayton can handle Mackenzie? Mackenzie and Claire obviously can't be allowed to see me, replied Sayers, but I'm still on site if he needs anything. That's true, agreed Tucker with a smile just before he leapt up, his phone by his ear. They should be downstairs by now. Meet me at the helicopter in 10. He walked away, speaking into the phone. Woods, 10 minutes, mate. Just me. Oakley placed the phone back onto the charger and shook his head. Ronnie and Marianne had just entered, should be a D there, the room. Marianne with a tea tray. How's it going? Asked Ronnie. It's a nightmare, admitted Oakley, taking a mug of tea gratefully and helping himself to a freshly baked cookie. I hate to admit that Barrera was right, but he very well could be. There is a danger that someone that we need to trust would have been corrupted by Lord Farnborough. They will all have weapons. We can't risk it, Ronnie. We can't risk you. Ronnie sat down in front of him, a serious look on her face. We don't have a choice. Idrisil has asked me, or rather told me, to find out what is going on up there. I don't like it any more than you do, but we have no choice. Barrera can scream at me until he is blue in the face, but it's necessary. We just have to hope none of your people have been corrupted. Oakley nodded. There is something else I need to show you. This is all part of the wider Arbor Associates plan if the worst was to happen. He turned the computer screen around. The research base that they needed to liberate was shown on a satellite picture. Oakley zoomed the picture out and then zoomed back in. This is Alpha Site. It is about 15 miles from our objective. The idea was that if the worst came to the worst and humanity failed to comply with the directives, which, if I'm honest, was the expected outcome, then provision for 5,000 people, mainly Yakunda but a few Opus too, was made. They will be housed within the trees of the Cairngorms until after everyone else has died and the trees have returned the oxygen to normal levels again. The outpost contains food and clothing. There are enough seeds, tools and equipment for every person to start fresh. We will populate a region in the Highlands. You and I and a few others will be the first to be released once it has happened. Teams will go and clear human remains from the houses and start moving. Don't like that's the way that's worded. Putting in what people will need to survive. Ronnie nodded. I see, Mr. Oakley. He shook his head. I think we're past the formality now. Call me Gordon. Ronnie looked nonplussed. Whatever. We need to go to Scotland as soon as possible. Gordon. He nodded and sighed wearily. Trust me, I'm working on it. I've asked for a couple of people to be replaced who appear to have had links with Farnborough, but frankly I'm shooting in the dark. I'm aiming to leave tomorrow night. That will have to be good enough for Lance Corporal Barrera, but you might have to tell him that. Ronnie stood. Make sure you sound like you're telling him, not asking him. You are the ambassador after all. I will, said Ronnie as she left the room. She closed the door and Marianne and Oakley could hear the soldiers outside being told to fetch their commanding officer. Have you seen the time? Asked Marianne. No, replied Oakley. He glanced at his watch. Oh, I missed the news and party political. Who was it tonight? Marianne picked up the tray and made their way to the corridor. The government's own. It will have been recorded in the garden room. We can always watch it later. They left, closing the door behind them. Oakley was about to pick up the phone and make another call when it started to ring. He looked at the caller display and saw that it was someone from the Arbor Associates Logistics Division. He grabbed the receiver and answered the call. Hello, it's Oakley. He recognised the voice at the other end. He'd been talking to him for most of the day. He'd known Oliver Shaw for years, long before either of them had started working for Arbor. Did you watch the party election broadcast? Said the voice on the other end of the phone. I've recorded it, said Oakley. Been a bit busy today. It was Derek Cockrell Wright. He's told the truth about everything. They showed footage they somehow got of Cockrell Wright's hand being absorbed by the tree next to the Houses of Parliament. They said the demands have come from ambassadors from the trees. They even named Veronica and Mackenzie as the respective ambassadors. They said they understand what is being asked of people and the impact it will have on them, but they also say that the threat the trees have made is very real, that the reason for the extra autumn was because the trees temporarily stopped producing oxygen just to prove that they could. He's told everybody everything, Gordon. Oakley pulled a face. I can't work out if that's good or bad, but it does pose potential security issues. Carl Tucker gave out the address of Forest Lodge. We should be okay, what with the travel ban and the curfew. Before he'd tried to encourage people to picket the house, but it never happened. Sorry to keep mocking about Oliver. Can you get the bus and the troops here tonight as originally planned? Thought you might ask that, replied Shaw. They won't get you before midnight, but we can do it. We are moving all Arbor personnel with Omega clearance up to Alpha Site tonight. That's anyone rated as Opus or Yokunda, including you. I'm going to make that a question. Including you? Yes, said Shaw. Are you aware that it doesn't include you now? Oak felt a tension in his shoulders. No? What do you mean it doesn't include me? Lord Farnborough rescinded your Omega clearance before he turned against you. We have officially reinstated it, but if he has communicated that change to Idrisil... Oakley closed his eyes. Then I'm fucked, he said as calmly as he could. The trees will not save me. I will die with the rest of them. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I hope it won't come to that, Gordon. Perhaps you should inform the ambassador of what has happened. If she has to interface before it happens, she might be able to save... If she has to interface before it happens, that might be enough to save you. She's got enough on her plate, said Oakley quietly. I won't bother with it right now. Don't leave it too late, said Shaw softly. I won't, said Oakley. Shaw paused before continuing. I've literally just been handed the paperwork from Teresa Burke that allows us to move our people up. What it does mean is there'll be more Arbor personnel in the area if you need further support when you get there. Let's hope it won't come to that, Oakley almost whispered. I hope not too, said Shaw. Take care of yourself, Gordon. There was a moment of silence before Shaw continued, his voice low and intense. Things may have not worked out, but I still highly respect you. I'd be devastated if anything happened to you. Talk to Ronnie. Make sure she gets your Opus status restored. If any of us survive all of this, we will need you, and so will I. Just going to change it to as will I. And that is something I added quite recently. So we know nothing about Oakley's background. And so this is just a hint of... Well, it's a hint that he's gay, which there's been no mention of before. And it's a hint that Oliver Shaw is someone that used to be quite important in his life. Shaw ended the call and Oakley placed his phone on the desk. He took a shuddering breath and shook his head. Suddenly there was too much to do, but before his mind went into overdrive, he wanted a moment to himself. He left the office, walked through the main hall, through the doors at the back and out into the garden. He made his way to the fence at the edge of the grass and let himself through the gate and into the forest. He walked around somewhat aimlessly, looking up into the branches of the trees and at the contours of the land. He ran his hand across his face and discovered that it was wet. He had not realised that he had been crying. He walked deliberately now until he came to the original interface tree. The branches at the top were twisted and dry, those that had not fallen to the ground. He picked his way carefully through the fallen branches and walked to the trunk of the tree. Although he did not have abilities like Ronnie or Ursula, physical contact with the tree, if it were long enough, always resulted in the bark raising around his hand and sap running between his fingers. He looked at the tree ahead of him and realised that it was probably dead or dying. Touching it would prove nothing. He stepped carefully away from it and walked to another large tree, a giant old yew on the far side of the clearing. Carefully walked up to the trunk and placed his palm flat on it. He waited for a few minutes with a sinking feeling. Usually, within the first minute, the tree would absorb his hand until it was a half depth inside the wood. When he removed it, there would be an outline on the bark and a sticky residue on his hand. Nothing was happening. He left his hand on the trunk for a couple of minutes, just to be sure, before removing it. Oakley sat down on a protruding root and dried his eyes with his handkerchief. This did not change the things he needed to do in the next few days. They still had to rescue Mackenzie and find out what the hell was going on in the research building. Oliver Shaw was right. He really ought to inform Ronnie what Farnborough had done. There was a chance she might be able to influence Idrisil to change it. I'll just put an extra sentence in that. Change it and save him. Oakley shook his head and then pushed himself to his feet. He needed to tell Barrera that the plan had changed again. They would be leaving tonight. He had a lot to do, so worrying about his own future would have to wait. Oakley put away his handkerchief and started walking back through the forest towards the house. As he did so, he picked up his phone. Marianne, he said, there's been a change of plan thanks to the election broadcast. Get everyone into my study. I'll be there in a few minutes to brief everybody. There was a pause as Marianne asked him a question. Yes, I'm perfectly fine. Just been for a walk out the back to stretch my legs and clear my head. Almost back at the house. He ended the call, thrust his phone deep into his trouser pocket and slowed his pace down just a little. He wanted to be sure that his eyes were no longer red by the time he reached the house. The change of plan had not gone down well. Barrera was furious. The coach arrived just after midnight. Barrera ordered everyone off and had each member of the party, including the driver, thoroughly searched. I don't know what's this search down. Stripped down and searched before they were allowed back on the bus. The cabin of which... The other personnel were ordered to sit at the front. When Ronnie was allowed out of Forest Lodge. When are you back in the country? I am back in the country on, I think it's Wednesday. Let me just double check. I think it's very, very early Wednesday morning, but let me just double check. Yeah, Wednesday morning. Right, Barrera ordered everyone off and had each member of the party, including the driver, thoroughly stripped down and searched before they were allowed back on board the coach. The cabin which was also thoroughly examined. The other personnel were ordered to sit at the front. When Ronnie was allowed out of the house... When Ronnie was finally allowed out of the house... She was marched to the back of the vehicle by Barrera and Vickers and placed in the penultimate row on the aisle seat with members of her protection unit sitting in the seats surrounding her. The rest of the people on the coach, apart from Oakley, Marion and Ursula, were told they could not stand up without asking permission. Yes. Yeah, that would be good, actually. That kind of fit in with the timings I'd want to do. Yeah, definitely. Can we say the 8th? Because I have a funny feeling I'm going to have finished editing this by then, so I really want to get that photograph so I can get a cover done for it and get a mock-up done. Cool, yes. Let me pop that in my diary. What I will do is I'll double check there's nothing, because occasionally they have reenactments and weird nonsense going on there. Last time I went they did that, and I'd rather go on a day where that isn't happening, but I will double check. In a minute, actually. I can do that now. Actually, give me a moment. Give me a moment and I will do it now. Cool. Yeah, because I kind of know what photograph I want. Do you want to channel my inner Robin Hood? No, I don't think I have an inner Robin Hood. Right, let me just... Actually, it was something to do with... It wasn't a show... It wasn't a... It was a World War One or World War Two. They were all in, like, army... I think it was World War Two, actually, because they were all in the... Yeah... Inner Sheriff of Nottingham, that's probably more like it. Sherwood Forest. Visit Sherwood.co.uk, there we go. Events. There's always something going on. See below for what's coming up. Backpack hire. See, English Civil War weekend, which finishes a couple of days before that, but that's perfect. Yeah, I did. As I've been before. No, that's perfect by the look of that. There's nothing going on that day. Perfect, because I really don't want to be running around watching. And also it means that if they are doing an event, there might be more kids around. Blech. So the change of plan, let me just read this final paragraph. The change of plan had not gone down well. Barrera was furious. The coach arrived just after midnight. At just after midnight. Oddly enough, I don't think I've ever been to a Centre Parks. I know plenty of people that have. The change of plan had not gone down well. Barrera was furious. The coach arrived at just after midnight. Barrera ordered everyone off and had each member of the party... Oh, okay. Party, including the driver, thoroughly stripped down and searched before they were allowed back on board the coach, the cabin of which was also thoroughly examined. I'm going to put the cabin which was thoroughly examined first. The Arbour personnel were ordered to sit at the front. When Ronnie was finally allowed out of the house, she was marched to the back of the vehicle by Barrera and Vickers and placed in the penultimate row on the aisle seat with members of her protection unit sitting in the seats. I'm going to put immediately surrounding her. Immediately surrounding her. The rest of the people on the coach, apart from Marianne, I'm not even going to put those. The rest of the people on the coach told they could not stand up without asking permission. It was almost 1 o'clock by the time the coach painted in the colours of the Conservative Party, containing a driver, 24 Arbour militia, 6 soldiers, Marianne, Ursula, Oakley and Ronnie, pulled out of the driveway and onto the narrow road that led to Keswick. Ronnie watched the house and the grounds as they faded into the distance behind her before closing her eyes and trying to get some sleep. Because in my original draft, they came back to Forest Lodge before the end of the story. And now they don't, because it just added a level of... Because then they had to go and then go... They had to go to the Cairngorms, do their... But yeah, it wasn't very well paced, the original ending. But so, export to Word. Oh, no, not EPUB. Wrong button. Cancel. So I'm going to run this through Grammarly and then I'm going to stop. But I'm thrilled if I've got 32, and I would say what I will try and do is I will try and get 33 done before I get back as well, which will just leave me 10 chapters to do, which will be wonderful. Right. What am I looking for? Oh, what's the time in the UK now? Oh, it's a reasonable time. I can record the podcast today as well, actually, during this. So chapter 32. And a month off work, don't remind me. Yeah, it doesn't seem... This trip always feels like it goes so quickly, and it doesn't seem real that, yeah, I'm off work for that long. It's more than a month. It's like 5 weeks. It's 35 or 36 days, I think it works out as. Right then, so... Well, I can afford to. I've kind of told myself I allow myself to do it twice a year. I last did it in November, so I'm going to allow myself one each season. And I did actually try to get it earlier, but I didn't see the email in time. I tried to get it earlier in the year, but right. Yeah, that's fair. Ah, no, it is a tree entity. God, you're not very good at this, are you, AI? It is not 3 entities, it's a tree entity. There we go. That was not. As I said, this has been worked on several times before and put through Grammarly before, so it's not a surprise that, and I haven't made that many changes, so it's not a surprise that not much needs to be done. Right, let me just open this up. I am feeling tired now, so I am ready to stop. Didn't really eat on the flight because I wasn't hungry, and now I am, but there's a lovely little 24-hour restaurant thing over, and I can have a salad and something healthy. Ooh. So I think I'm going to do that. You have Singaporean sitting on the world clocks on your phone. Yeah, it's late here. It is very late here. It's I'm on Sydney. My watch is still on Sydney, but it's going to be what, 1:45? Oh yeah, 1:45. I've got my computer. I let go to local time, but I keep my phone on UK time all the time. And then my watch I change. Well, I can have two, so I always have UK time and local time on the watch screen. Right, so that is chapter 32 finished. I'm going to record the pod, I think. Oh, let me just, no, wrong one. Let me just drag that down to there. That's crazy. That's so good. I've only got 11 to do, and I have started looking at chapter 33 already. I'm not going to do much on this now. So this is the stuff I started writing in, was it July or August last year? Yeah, well, I was talking to another friend of mine, and she's in Phoenix, Arizona. So she's 17 hours behind me. It's almost easier to think of her as 7 hours ahead, but she's not, because she's in yesterday. Well, not now she isn't, but the time I was chatting with her, she was still yesterday. Very strange. Right. So, let's pod. Let's just make that the size I want it to be. record podcast. I shall edit it and upload it in a minute. Right, where are we? Hello, today is Sunday the 22nd of... Have I got that right? Yeah, it is, isn't it? Let me start again. Hello, today is Sunday the 22nd of June 2025 and you are listening to the Diary of a Wannabe Writer. And no exciting location today. I'm not at the Opera Bar and I'm not walking down towards Sydney Harbour Bridge. I'm in a hotel in Singapore, having basically spent the last 10 or 11 hours working. So when I spoke to you last, I had just signed off chapter 31, and I had done a bit of reading and I did do a bit of chapter 32 reading when I went to the hotel, but I was very, very jet lagged. At the moment there's a 9-hour time difference between London and Sydney. When the clocks change, it becomes 11 hours because they go one way and we go the other. So yeah, at some points of the year there's 11 hours difference between Sydney and London, but at the moment it's only 9. Anyway, so I had my lunch, I signed off chapter 31, I recorded the podcast from the Opera Bar, and then I walked back to my hotel and I did a bit of reading, planned to do some other stuff, but I was exceedingly tired by then. And I tried to stay awake and failed. Did I go out and get something to eat? No, I'd had something to eat at the Opera Bar. So I was just really, really tired and eventually fell asleep. And then I got up this morning at 7 a.m. Sydney time, which I think was probably technically still... Are they ahead? Yeah, they're ahead. So it was probably still yesterday UK time, and I had some breakfast because they do us an excellent deal at the hotel for breakfast. So it's a nice buffet breakfast, and it costs less with the exchange rate the way it is now, less than a tenner, so it's really, really good. So I had my breakfast, went up to my room, read a little bit more, and then slept again for a few hours because we were not due to be picked up until 12:50, which we were. We then drove off to the airport, and I operated on the flight working from Sydney to Singapore. And weirdly, because I had slept quite well before pickup, I was really keen to do a bit more work on the book. And I kind of felt that chapter 33 was probably just about... Oh, I've just pressed a funny button on my phone and I don't know what I'm doing. Bear with me a second. Yeah, I got to the point where I kind of thought chapter 23... chapter 33, no, 32. I'm going to do something I don't do very often and edit the podcast. Hang on. Bit more work on the book. And I kind of felt that chapter 33 was probably just about... Oh, I've just pressed a funny button on my phone and I don't know what I'm doing. To do a bit more work on the book. And I probably felt that chapter 32 was where it needed to be, having spent quite a lot of time on it, reading it over, yesterday afternoon and this morning. So I didn't get time. So this was a shorter flight and not one where we can actually, I don't really get time to myself on this flight. And the time I did, I basically was in a bunk for an hour and a bit. But yeah, so we got to the airport, arrived in Singapore and got the bus to our hotel, and I've literally just done, or I'm recording this as part of actually, the live stream, and during that I have signed off chapter 32. So I'm now 2 chapters ahead of the goal I set myself for this month. That's fine. But it's a really significant spot in the narrative of the book, because it's where I stopped writing. So the story has had 2 main writing phases. So I might have visited it a couple of times, but basically it was the last chapter I wrote before I moved from my old model, which was to write the whole book and then edit the whole book. It was after I basically picked the book up again at that point in August last year, it might have been July, that I moved on to my write edit model. So it was the last chapter in the first primary writing phase, and the chapter I'm going to go on to edit hopefully tomorrow, chapter 33, or at least start working on tomorrow, was written a couple of years later. So it will be interesting to see. I'm sure it won't be a problem because I have read through them before, but this is the first time I've read it having read the previous 32 chapters. So it'll be very interesting to see, stylistically, if they're similar and if it works. As I said, I'm sure it will, because I had immersed myself in the first 32 chapters before I started writing chapter 33. Interestingly, the first draft of chapter 33 had loads of stuff with them on the bus driving up to Scotland, and I read it before starting writing the new material and just decided it was absolutely crap. And so I binned it. It's unusual for me to write a large chunk and then go, you know what, this is rubbish. It's not getting me anywhere. And I rewrote it from scratch. And I think most of the action takes place after they've arrived in the Cairngorms now. So, yeah. But that's it. So that's the chapter I will start looking at tomorrow. Chapter 33, the first one from after I switched to my write edit model. So it was the first chapter that I wrote, then edited. It also means I'm only 11 chapters away from signing off this draft of the book. And I've looked at my notes. I've done all the things I needed to do. So I needed to establish the names of all of the soldiers, all the final 6 soldiers that go up to the Cairngorms with them. I've done that. I needed to introduce Oliver Shaw as a character. I've done that. I mean, he's appeared in the chapter I've just written, but he gets mentioned a couple of times before that. So all the things I felt I needed to do, I've done. So I feel really good, and it's very, very likely that I will get, well, I definitely will get the chapter. I should never say definitely because something can happen, but it's very likely that I will get this signed off before the end of June. It's very likely I'll get this signed off in early June, to be honest. But that's great because then I can start working on the still life sequel, Self-Portrait. Anyway, that's me. I'm hoping to come back on the podcast tomorrow to say that I've signed off chapter 33, but I think it's more likely that I will do that the following day on the 24th. Anyway, thank you for listening. Take care, and I'll be back at the same time tomorrow. Bye-bye. Podcast recorded, and as I say, I'd actually took a little break, which is interesting because that's easier to do on this computer than it is if I record it directly onto my phone. Although now I've got to move things around, that might not be so easy. Let's just have a look. Well, let's listen to the join actually and just make sure it sounds all right. To do a bit more work on the book, and I probably felt that chapter 32 was where it needed to be. I can tell, but I'm sure it sounds all right. Okay, so let me drag the opening and closing music into that. Opening. I shall drag the closing in a minute. Now, can I move that, or is it going to make me move? No, it's going to make me move a few bits at a time, isn't it? Okay. It sounds fine your end. I don't know how recent that comment came up, sorry, but if that was about the join, good, thank you. About the join, perfect, thank you. All right then. Yeah, I almost never do that. I sort of consider it cheating, but never mind. I'm tired and I didn't want to have to start the whole thing again. So. Hello, today is... No, that came in late. Hello, today is Sunday. That's exactly the right spot. Right, let me just do that. Let's ram that back into there. There we go. And then add end music. Yay. Right, we're nearly done. I won't schedule it on whilst I'm doing the podcast. I might do that from my. Sorry, I won't schedule it whilst I'm doing this live stream. I'm going to go and get something to eat, so I might sort of do that in the restaurant because I only need my phone to do that. Let me just. More likely that I will do that the following day on the 24th. Anyway, thank you for listening. Take care, and I'll be back at the same time tomorrow. Bye-bye. You have been listening to The Diary. Sorry, I've only just seen that comment. Oh, that's really good news. So we're both firing on all cylinders, as it were. Right, let me export this. I am tired. I am definitely. I'm glad I'm not forcing myself to do any more. 22nd of the 6th, 25. Cafe W, absolutely, yes. Yes, because I'm doing Cafe W on Friday. I'm meeting some other friends on Saturday, and I might go away that week as well, because I'll be back by the time we do our bit. We do the Sherwood Forest thing. I might go away for the week before that happens, possibly. I haven't decided yet. Right. Your other friends, it's disgusting, isn't it? Right. That's all I'm going to do for tonight. Let me find the right button to press on here to get you back to this screen. So thank you everybody who's popped in and contributed. So that was obviously Bow Street Society, and earlier on that was Angel Fate 87 and Loth Official. I am tired now. It does feel late and I'm hungry, so I'm going to go and get some food. But thank you for being with me as I signed off chapter 32. Yeah, long may this burst of work continue. Thank you for watching. Take care. Bye bye.